Morning. Did you guys miss me yesterday? Sorry, I just had a long weekend, been working kind of hard, and so kind of decided to rest yesterday. Slept in a lot of bit. Anyways, ready? Are you guys ready for the Enchantress returns? Emerson's probably gonna join me soon. He's probably gonna wake up soon and join me, hopefully. Do you guys remember what happened not yesterday. When was this? Oh my gosh, so long ago. Thursday, huh? The Queen and the Frog, remember? They're a couple now. Ha, funny. Um, well, technically, the frog is not really a frog. His name is what is it? King something. Ooh, I don't remember. Emerson, I need you. Where are you? It is it's Froggy, but he's one of the charming kingdoms, right? I mean, he's one of the charming kings, right? I just don't remember his name at the moment. Charlie? Is it Charlie? King Charlie? I think it's King Charlie. Yes, it is King Charlie. Yeah, so Froggy's King Charlie, and he's with one of the queens. Which one? Oh my gosh, it was so long ago. I can't even remember. Yada yada yada. Esmia, blah blah blah. King Chase is still stuck in the Eastern Kingdom. Queen Sleeping Beauty barely made it out. Is it Queen Sleeping Beauty and Froggy together? Are they a couple now? Oh my gosh. There's so many character names. Ah, it's Little Red Riding Hood. Queen Red Riding Hood and Froggy are a couple now, right? They are so in love. All right, chapter 12 is called A Not So Charming Evening. Ooh, what is that? That looks like a crib. Is that a crib or is that a bed? I don't know. Well, let's see what's going to happen. A not so charming evening. I wonder why it's going to be not so charming. Let's see how much of this I'm going to read. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. Oh my gosh, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23 pages. We'll see. Maybe I'll read the whole thing. I'm not sure. All right. A not so charming evening. Maybe I'll read 10 pages. We'll see how long it takes me. I just want to read about 30 minutes each. I don't want to read like a full hour. All right. The twins left Froggy and Red shortly after receiving the letter about the happily ever after assembly. What happened with the happily ever after assembly? You guys remember? Well, let me read on. Maybe that'll help me. The four of them rode in one carriage, while all of Red's necessary luggage was carried in a separate carriage behind them. The twins felt sorry for the horses pulling the second carriage. It seemed like a heavy heave. They have they had half a dozen soldiers surrounding them as they traveled which Froggy insisted was a perfect amount for safety, but not enough to cause any unwanted attention. Halfway they came to a stop so Red could change into an enormous gown their scheme required. They pulled into a tiny field into two large oak trees, and Red transformed the first carriage into a dressing room. She kicked Connor and Froggy out and made Alex stay inside and help her dress. It was definitely a challenge, as the gown was much bigger than the inside of the carriage. Like, can you imagine like changing into like a huge ball gown dress inside I don't know, inside the car, right? In the back seat of a car. Probably looks like that small. It was definitely a challenge. I'd just like to point out that Queen Snow White never has to change on the side of the road, Red said, struggling to pull the heavy dress over her head. I suppose that's what I get for being an elected queen. It must be some consolation to know you are wanted, Alex said, trying to help Red move through the dress. They actually chose you to lead their kingdom. It wasn't just handed to you. Not really, Red said. After the Crawl Revolution, it was between me and the third little pig, and he didn't want the job. He was a total recluse. He barely came out of that brick house he was so proud of. And with one last effort, Red pushed herself up through the center of the gown. There we go, she said, out of breath. The boys rejoined them inside the carriage, and the procession continued to the charming palace. There was physically no room for anything else inside the carriage with the four bodies and a mound of endless red fabric crammed inside. Oh no, Red said, after they had been on the move for less than 5 minutes. What is it? Connor said. Connor asked with his face pressed up against the window. Now I have to tinkle, Red peeped. Everyone else in the carriage groaned. That's funny. Like, I kind of imagine like the day of my wedding. I had to wear my wedding dress, and I went inside my mom's car, and I had to go from the church to the reception, and that thing was huge, and I had like three people in the car with me. I felt sorry for the people who were sitting next to me. They had to help me get on and off the car. So yeah, I think that's how it is in this car right now, in this carriage right now. And she has a tinkle. How bad is that? The twins couldn't resist ogling all the storybook estates and villages they passed on the way to the palace's front steps. Something seemed different about the charming kingdom, though the twins couldn't put a finger on it. Even beyond the lack of villagers parading through the streets and trading in the shops, there was a very gloomy vibe that floated through the whole kingdom. The carriages rolled up to the bottom of the lengthy staircase leading up to the palace's entrance, and the twins were relieved to finally be getting out of the compact carriage. They didn't care how crammed they would be under Red's dress. Do you think they're going to be more crammed under Red's dress or in the carriage? Remember, these twins has to hide under her dress, right? Awkward. They were greeted by a palace footman. Froggy immediately jumped out of the carriage and busied him with unloading the luggage into the second carriage. In the second carriage, the twins both hopped out of the carriage and crouched on the ground. Red was next to hop out and landed directly in the middle of them. Her gown exploded out of the carriage and securely covered the twins below her. It was perfect. So far, so good, Alex whispered under Red's dress. Nice bloomers, Red, Connor said, chuckling about the knee-length undershorts she had strategically put on. Oh, thank goodness she wore shorts. Red grunted and kneed Alex in the head. Ouch, that was me, Red, Alex said. Apologies, Red said, and then kneed Connor in the head. Ouch, Connor yelled. Froggy walked back to find Red and the twins perfectly in position. Are you ready for this? Froggy asked. I think so, Alex said. Roger, Roger. It's supposed to be Roger, Dodger. Roger, Roger, Connor said. That's reassuring, Froggy said, and used a handkerchief to wipe the beads of sweat on his forehead. Because I most certainly am not. Take a chill pill, Frog, Connor said. No one is gonna know we're under here. The footman glanced over suspiciously from the second carriage, positive he had just heard voices come from bodies that weren't visible. Make sure you two stay as silent as possible under there, Froggy said, and he gulped so hard he croaked. Let's make our way into the palace, shall we? Red took a step forward. Red took a step forward the twins weren't ready for. Red, we can't see anything. You're going to have to guide us, Connor whispered up at her. And how am I supposed to do that? Red whispered down at them. Narrate what you're doing, Alex said. Red closed her eyes and took a deep breath, mentally preparing herself for the evening she was in for. Fine, I'm walking toward the stairs, Red informed them, and they moved with her. She was walking too fast for them to keep up. Take baby steps, Connor whispered. We're crouched down here like chimpanzees. Red's nostrils flared. Sure, she said sharply. Now I'm walking slowly up the stairs. The first few steps were a disaster. Froggy kept gasping every time he saw one of their sneakers peeking out from under the gown. Slowly but surely they managed to get the hang of it and smoothly made their way up the enormous flight of steps. Back at their carriages, the footman could have sworn he saw 3 pairs of feet under Red's dress out of the corner of his eye, but when he double-checked, they were gone. The footman continued unloading the second carriage, deciding he just needed glasses, or to retire. Oof, thank God. Alex's and Connor's backs were starting to ache from crawling up the steps like monkeys, but it only got worse when they reached the top of the stairs and the ground became flat, causing them to slouch even more. And now I'm walking toward the palace entrance. No more steps. Red said out loud. Ooh, she said that out loud. A few of the charming kingdom guards patrolling the entrance looked at her funny. After all, she was walking at a snail's pace. Ooh, sorry. And talking to herself. You certainly are, Froggy said to Red and patted her back, trying to reduce the awkwardness. Prince Charlie, welcome back, sir, the twins heard a familiar voice say. Sir Lambton, Froggy clarified for them. Good to see you, although I wish the visit were for a different occasion. Alex and Connor tensed up knowing Sir Lambton was just a few feet away from them. They held their breath, afraid he'd even hear that. Now I'm walking inside the charming palace, Red said to the twins, but was caught by Sir Lambton. And I can't believe it. Feels like I was home just a minute ago. Such a quick trip. It was a decent cover, but from under the gown the twins could feel the suspicious gaze Lambton was giving Red. Are you feeling all right, Your Majesty? Lambton asked her. You're walking so slowly. Are you ill? Connor and Alex exchanged a glance, wondering how Red was going to cover up this one. Perfectly fine, Sir Lambton, Red said. I just selected the wrong pair of shoes to travel in, and my feet are killing me. Alex and Connor sighed with relief. Connor gave Red a thank you pat on her knee. She quickly slapped his head through the gown, and Connor bit his fist to silence a scream. Just an itch, Red said with a tight smile. How are things here? Froggy asked, trying to distract Lambton. Terrible, he said. Have you not heard? I'm guessing not, Froggy said. What happened? Lambton let out the most troubled sigh the twins had ever heard. Princess Hope was kidnapped last night. The twins gasped, unable to contain the shock, but it was covered by the gasps coming from Red and Froggy. What? Froggy said, devastated by the news about his only niece. What do you mean, kidnapped? By whom? Rumpelstiltskin, Sir Lambton said. It looks like he's working for the Enchantress again. Only this time he succeeded. It grew quiet. The whole world seemed to be falling apart for everyone. A few moments later, after traveling across the red-carpeted interior of the charming palace's entrance door, the twins knew they had arrived inside the ballroom, recognizing the golden dance floor beneath them. The room was filled with troubled voices and impatient footsteps milling about. Here, Your Majesty, please have a seat, the twins heard Sir Lambton say. Thank you, Red said. I'm now going to slowly sit on the stool I've so graciously been provided with. The twins cringed from the inelegance of Red's statement, but thankfully everyone else in the room was too occupied to have even noticed Red and Froggy enter the room. She slowly sat on the stool placed behind her, giving the twins enough time to adjust themselves to her seated position. Sitting on the floor beside her, it was a relief to all their joints. The twins could hear small conversations from all corners of the room. They wished they could put faces to the voices they heard. Connor nudged Alex and quietly gestured to a loose seam he'd found in Red's dress. He carefully pulled the seam apart even more and created a small hole to peek out of. Alex did the same on her side, and they were finally able to see outside the gown. Although they knew everyone in the room, there was so much heartache and hopelessness worn on all their faces. The kings and queens were almost unrecognizable. It was hard for the twins to see them all like this. Their lives had always been perfect examples of happiness, but here they are now the most distraught group of people they'd ever seen. Queen Cinderella was seated on her throne, devastated beyond belief. Her hands covered her swollen eyes as tears rolled down her face. She was comforted by Queen Snow White and Queen Rapunzel, who used the tip of their remarkably long braid to dry Cinderella's tears. The men paced around the corner of the ballroom. King Chance never stopped moving, furious that his daughter had been taken from him. King Chandler and Rapunzel's husband stood near him, unable to do anything but watch. Froggy joined them, lending his support with his presence. Sorry, I'm trying to figure out where I'm supposed to stop. Okay. Last night I heard her crying, Cinderella told the women at her throne. I got out of bed and went to her room. A few of the maids were on their way inside, but I insisted on checking on her myself. When I opened the door, the first thing I saw were the curtains blowing inside. I thought it was strange. I didn't remember leaving her window open, and that's when I saw him, that horrid little man holding my daughter. Heavy streams of tears flowed down the queen's face. Rapunzel rubbed her back, and Snow White held her hands tightly. Breathe, Cinderella, breathe, Snow White told her. Cinderella caught her breath and continued. Then he looked me right in the eye and hopped out of the window. I screamed and ran to the windowsill, trying to see if I could see them below, but they were gone, she said. That disgusting man disappeared with my baby. Snow White held her breath and she cried into her shoulder. Oh, sorry. Snow White held her and she cried into her shoulder. This is all my fault, said a small voice across the room. Queen Sleeping Beauty stood at the window in the back of the ballroom, listlessly staring at the land outside. I'm the one she wants. I'm the one she's after, Sleeping Beauty said in a daze. Why doesn't she just take me? Why does she have to make everyone else suffer? This isn't your fault, Rapunzel said. I'll keep reading. You can't blame yourself for this, Snow White agreed. King Chance grew tired of pacing and groaned angrily. He needed someone to blame. Where are those useless fairies, he demanded, and why haven't they done something about this yet? A soft breeze blew through the ballroom, and twinkling lights of all the colors of the rainbow floated through the room. The fairy council slowly appeared out of thin air. Emeralda. Oh, I kept saying Esmeralda, but I guess it's Emeralda because she's green. Emerald. I get it. Was first to appear. We're doing everything in our power, she said. She was tall, black, and beautiful. She wore a long emerald gown that matched her eyes and jewelry. Esmeralda always had a soft but authoritative presence. She was someone you could trust but never wanted to cross. Xanthus was next to arrive and was followed by Skyline, the blue fairy. She had pale skin, hair the color of the sky, and robes the color of the ocean. Tangerina appeared shortly after her. She was the orange fairy, and actual bees flew around her beehive. Violetta, the purple fairy and oldest of the council, popped up close to where Red and the twins were sitting. Rosette, the short, plump, and rosy cheeked red fairy, appeared next. Coral, the youngest, and the pink fairy showed up shortly after that, hovering in the air. Thanks to her tiny wings, the fairy's colorful arrival was a beautiful sight, but not beautiful enough to raise the spirits in the room. Well, it's not enough, Chance yelled at them. The Enchantress is one of you. Isn't she? You outnumber her. Why can't you handle this? We are greater than her in size, but not in strength, said Skyline in a dreamlike voice. She managed to grow more powerful than we've ever imagined, Xanthus said. I'm afraid even the fairy godmother is no match for her. Speaking of the fairy godmother, has she or Mother Goose arrived yet? Emeralda asked, looking around the ballroom. We need to begin. Another soft breeze blew through the room, this time carrying white sparkling lights that circled into a vortex in the center of the room. A moment later, the twins' grandmother appeared with her crystal wand raised. The twins looked nervously at each other. Now that their grandmother was here, they were officially in the same room as everyone they wanted to avoid. Forgive me for being late, the fairy godmother said, and politely acknowledged everyone in the room with a comforting nod. There was a bit of an issue in the other world. The twins had never heard their world referred to anything else but home before. It was odd to have it a name of its own, although not entirely surprising. What else had the fairies been calling it this entire time? Red Riding Hood Red Riding Hood, my word. That is quite a dress you're wearing, the fairy godmother said when she saw Red sitting in the oversized gown. Alex and Connor could hear each other's heartbeats and were terrified they were about to be discovered. Well, Red said nervously, thinking as quickly as possible, it's important to dress your best when the world is at its worst, to raise morale. Yes, I suppose that is true, the fairy godmother said, though she didn't sound fully convinced. With all due respect, I don't believe this is the proper time to be talking about dresses and the other world, King Chance said. his frustration building every second spent without his daughter. Will Mother Goose be joining us? Emeralda asked, getting the meeting back on track. The twins' grandmother dropped the subject of Red's dress. No, she stayed behind in the other world, she said. My grandchildren are missing, so she agreed to continue searching for them while we have our discussion. That's horrible, Red said, shaking her head a tad too much. I hope they're all right. I just love those two so much. Alex and Connor shared a mutual eye roll. Is everyone else here? The fairy godmother asked, still eyeing Red strangely. Everyone but the elves, ma'am. Sir Lambton informed her from the side of the room. We sent a word of our meeting to the Elf Empire, but they have chosen to miss it, feeling the current situation has nothing to do with them. King Chandler sighed. Typical, he said. The elves never got involved unless they have to. Thank you, Sir Lambton, the fairy godmother said. Then let's begin. King Chan stormed up to her. Tell us why the Enchantress can't be stopped. Why are all of you so incompetent? He shouted. The fairy godmother looked at him with her trademark compassion. Chance, I'm afraid I don't have your answers. Esmea is just as big as a mystery to me as she is to all of you. And I'm going to stop here for today and continue tomorrow. Ooh, you like that little cliffhanger there? All right. Thanks for joining. I will see you tomorrow. And don't forget to smash that like button. All right. Take care, guys.